Hello, curious minds. Welcome to a new intellectual exploration. Today, we're diving into a titanic figure, a man who lived for almost a century and whose shadow stretches across all of modern thought. We're talking about someone born in the age of horse-drawn carriages who died in the era of space exploration. Imagine a British aristocrat, grandson of a prime minister, who dedicated his best years to trying to prove that 1 + 1 = 2 with absolute certainty, only to discover that the foundations of truth were more fragile than anyone, absolutely anyone, had ever imagined. But this same man, the father of analytic philosophy, didn't stay cooped up in his ivory tower. He was a radical activist who preferred jail to war, a fierce critic of organized religion, and a tireless advocate for free love and human happiness. Bertrand Russell is, without a doubt, one of history's most complex and fascinating minds. His life is a journey from the most rigid mathematical certainty to the deepest human compassion. Today, we're going to unravel his paradoxes, his passions, and his indelible legacy. The big question guiding us today is, how can someone seek the cold, absolute truth of logic and at the same time fight so passionately for the imperfect human condition? Join me as we uncover the answer in the life of this rebellious genius. Before we begin, a brief note. To bring this narrative to life, I've used artificial intelligence tools to generate the images you see. Think of them as a canvas, a way to illustrate the ideas and the atmosphere of what we're sharing. They won't always be a literal representation, but rather a visual accompaniment to let your imagination soar with me. I sincerely hope you enjoy it. Our story begins in 1872. Bertrand Arthur William Russell was born into one of Great Britain's most influential families. His grandfather, Lord John Russell, had been Prime Minister under Queen Victoria. Fate seemed to have prepared a path of politics and power for him. However, tragedy struck early. Before he turned 4 years old, Bertrand had lost his mother, his sister, and his father. He was left an orphan, under the guardianship of his grandparents at Pembroke Lodge. It was a childhood marked by silence, Victorian rigidity, and overwhelming loneliness. In that house, strict religion and morality were the law, but young Russell had a restless mind, a mind that wouldn't conform to dogmas. He sought something solid to hold on to in a world where everything he loved had disappeared so quickly. His lifeline arrived at age 11 through his brother Frank, who introduced him to Euclidean geometry. Russell would describe this moment as dazzling, as intense as first love. For the first time, he found a world where truths were perfect, demonstrable, and eternal. Geometry gave him a reason to live, literally. Russell later confessed that during his adolescence, he often had thoughts of ending his own existence. But he stopped because he wanted to learn more mathematics. Logic became his refuge against the emotional chaos of his existence. Upon arriving at Cambridge University, Russell felt liberated. He entered an environment where everything was questioned. However, the dominant philosophy at the time was idealism, a school of thought that stated reality is mental and everything is connected in a spiritual unity. At first, Russell accepted this, but his love for mathematics made him doubt. If everything is mind, where does the objective truth of numbers fit in? Alongside his friend George Edward Moore, he spearheaded an intellectual rebellion. They decided that the real world exists, whether we look at it or not. This break was the birth of analytic philosophy. Instead of creating grand, obscure, and poetic systems like Hegel, Russell wanted to analyze concepts, breaking them down into their simplest parts, like a chemist breaking matter into atoms. He wanted absolute clarity. His ambition grew. He set himself a titanic task to demonstrate that all mathematics could be reduced to pure logic. He wanted to prove that numbers were not inventions, but fundamental logical laws of the universe. This was called logicism. It seemed he was on the right track until 1901. While working on the foundations of set theory, Russell stumbled upon something terrifying. A simple yet devastating contradiction that threatened to bring down the entire edifice of mathematics. It's the famous Russell's paradox. To understand it, imagine a village where there's a barber who shaves all men who do not shave themselves and only them. The question is, does the barber shave himself? Think about it. If the barber shaves himself, then he shouldn't shave himself because he only shaves those who don't shave themselves. But if he doesn't shave himself, then he must shave himself because he shaves everyone who doesn't. It's a vicious circle, an insoluble contradiction. In logical terms, this refers to the set of all sets that do not contain themselves. Does this set contain itself? This paradox was an earthquake. Russell wrote to the great logician Gottlob Frege, who saw his life's work crumble because of this simple question. Russell didn't give up. He decided he had to solve this. Alongside his former professor, Alfred North Whitehead, he embarked on writing Principia Mathematica. His goal was to reconstruct mathematics from the ground up, avoiding paradoxes with foolproof rules. It was a brutal endeavor that lasted 10 years. 10 years to write 3 massive volumes filled with strange symbols that very few people in the world could read. Russell later said his intellect never fully recovered from the effort of writing that book. To give you an idea of the rigor, it took them hundreds of pages just to formally prove that 1 + 1 = 2. Upon reaching that conclusion, they added an ironic note saying that the proposition is occasionally useful. Although the Principia didn't achieve everything they promised, and Kurt Gödel would later prove that such a system is impossible to complete, the work remains a monument to human intellect. It was the noblest attempt to find absolute certainty in an uncertain world. But Russell didn't just revolutionize mathematics, he also transformed language. He realized that many philosophical confusions arise because we misuse words. He developed the theory of descriptions to clarify our way of talking about the world. Take the sentence, "The present king of France is bald. France is a republic, it has no king." Is the sentence true or false? If we say it's false, it seems to suggest the king has hair. Russell solved this by analyzing the hidden logical structure beneath everyday language. He taught us that language is a map, and sometimes the map has errors that don't correspond to the territory. His work founded the philosophy of language, a vital tool for later thinkers and for modern computing. Without Russell, we wouldn't understand the logic of programming. At Cambridge, Russell had a student who would change his life, Ludwig Wittgenstein, an intense, brilliant, and tormented young Austrian. Russell saw in him his natural successor, someone capable of taking logic beyond where he had left it. Their relationship was tempestuous. Wittgenstein eventually criticized Russell's ideas, telling him that logic couldn't explain the most important things in life, like ethics or mysticism. Russell, though hurt, had the intellectual honesty to acknowledge his student's genius. While he wrestled with logic, the real world erupted. In 1914, the First World War began. Most intellectuals were swept away by patriotic fervor. Russell, however, stood firm in his pacifism. He couldn't understand how European civilization was rushing towards a devastating conflict. He wrote, gave speeches, and organized protests. This stance turned him into an outcast. His friends turned their backs on him, and the British government watched him closely. His activism came at a high price. He was expelled from his position at Cambridge University, losing his academic home. And in 1918, he was sentenced to 6 months in prison for an article criticizing American intervention in the war. But Russell was unshakable. In Brixton Prison, far from getting depressed, he wrote another mathematics book and read voraciously. He said that prison was a pleasant respite from the responsibility of trying to save the world. After the war, Russell traveled to the Soviet Union. He met with Lenin and Trotsky. While other left-leaning intellectuals idealized the revolution, Russell saw the nascent authoritarianism. He wrote a prophetic critique of Bolshevism when it was still unpopular to do so. He also traveled to China, where he was received as a hero. He fell in love with Chinese culture, admiring its focus on life and happiness over Western efficiency. There, he fell seriously ill with pneumonia, and Japanese newspapers even announced his death. But Russell, as always, survived. Upon returning to England, with a family to support, he had to reinvent himself. He became a popular writer, publishing books on education, marriage, and morality that scandalized conservative society. In his book, The Conquest of Happiness, Russell brought philosophy down to earth. He told us that unhappiness comes from worrying too much about oneself. He proposed enthusiasm for simple things and curiosity towards the outside world as the cure for melancholy. He also tackled sensitive topics like personal relationships. He advocated for education on relationships and individual freedom long before the changes of the 1960s. He founded an experimental school, Beacon Hill, where children had complete freedom to learn and question established ideas. His stance on religion was equally provocative. In his famous lecture, Why I Am Not a Christian, he argued that religion is based on fear and has been a source of immeasurable misery for humanity. He advocated for an ethic based on human kindness, not divine commandments. To illustrate the burden of proof, he invented the famous Russell's teapot. He said that if he were to assert that there's a porcelain teapot orbiting between Earth and Mars, no one could disprove it. But that doesn't mean it's reasonable to believe in it. This simple analogy disarmed centuries of religious apologetics. Russell insisted that it's not up to the skeptic to disprove dogma, but to the believer to prove it. His agnosticism wasn't timid doubt, but a brave affirmation of reason in the face of superstition. Then came the major global conflict of the mid-20th century, and this time, Russell changed his pacifist stance. He recognized that the head of the German regime at the time was a threat that couldn't be stopped with words. He admitted that armed conflict, though terrible, was sometimes the lesser of two difficult choices. This demonstrated his intellectual flexibility. After the war, with the world divided by the Iron Curtain, Russell became one of the most respected voices on the planet. In 1950, he received the Nobel Prize in Literature, not for a novel, but for his writings in defense of humanitarian ideals. At an age when most people retire, Russell radicalized again. The advent of the atomic bomb terrified him. He saw that humanity had, for the first time, the capacity for complete self-destruction. He dedicated his final decades to preventing nuclear apocalypse. In 1955, he joined forces with Albert Einstein. Together, they released the Russell-Einstein Manifesto. It was Einstein's last public act before his death. The document called on the world's scientists to unite and warn of the dangers of nuclear weapons. The manifesto's key phrase resonates to this day: remember your humanity and forget the rest. It was a desperate plea to global conscience at the height of the Cold War. Russell didn't just write. At 89 years old, he was arrested again for sitting down in a mass protest in London. Imagine the scene: a frail old man, one of the century's greatest intellects, being led away by police for defending everyone's future. He co-founded the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. Do you know the famous peace symbol, the circle with the broken lines? It was born from this movement, designed for the marches that Russell led. His visual legacy is on every peace t-shirt and flag today. In his final years, he also fiercely opposed the Vietnam War. He organized a symbolic international tribunal to judge war crimes. He was criticized for being anti-American, but he maintained that his loyalty was to justice, not to any flag. Russell's personal life was as tumultuous as his public one. He married 4 times and had countless affairs. He sought in love the same intensity he sought in mathematics, a total fusion that would erase the individual's loneliness. He was no saint. He could be cold, distant, and at times cruel to those he loved. His children suffered from his overwhelming intellect and expectations. It's a reminder that great humanists sometimes fall short in their closest human relationships. However, his driving force was always a deep compassion. In the prologue to his autobiography, he wrote that 3 simple but overwhelming passions governed his life: the longing for love, the search for knowledge, and unbearable pity for the suffering of mankind. The longing for love drew him out of his isolation. The search for knowledge allowed him to understand the cosmos. But pity for suffering always brought him back to Earth. He heard the cries of pain in the world and couldn't ignore them. Russell lived to be 97 years old. His mind remained lucid almost until the very end. He had seen the world completely transform, and he had been one of its main architects. He died in 1970, leaving an immense intellectual void. Today, Russell's legacy is everywhere. It's in the logic of the computers we use. It's in the analytic philosophy taught in universities. It's in the healthy skepticism towards authority and religious dogma. But perhaps his most important legacy is his attitude. The Russellian spirit, that blend of fierce intellect and moral courage. He taught us that thinking clearly is a moral duty, because bad ideas lead to bad actions and unnecessary suffering. Russell warned us about the dangers of fanaticism. He said that the trouble with the world is that the stupid are cocksure and the intelligent are full of doubt. In our era of disinformation and polarization, his words sound more urgent than ever. He left us a recipe for critical thinking. When you are studying any matter or contemplating any philosophy, ask yourself only what are the facts and what is the truth that the facts bear out. Never let yourself be diverted either by what you wish to believe or by what you think would have social advantages if it were believed. His life challenges us. It challenges us not to settle for easy answers. It challenges us to tolerate uncertainty without falling into paralysis. It challenges us to use our minds to improve the world, not just to understand it. Bertrand Russell was the philosopher who came down from the mountain. He didn't stay with the tablets of logical law. He came down to the valley to fight against war, ignorance, and fear. He showed us that one can be an abstract genius and a passionate human being at the same time. In one of his last interviews, he was asked what message he would leave for future generations. His answer was simple and eternal: love is wise, hatred is foolish. In this increasingly interconnected world, we must learn to tolerate one another. We must learn to accept the fact that nobody likes what we say. Only then can we live together. If we are to live together and not die together, we must learn some kind of charity and tolerance. Those words are his final testament. So the next time you defend an idea, remember Russell. Seek out the evidence. Question your own biases. And above all, remember that intelligence without love can be dangerous, but love without intelligence is powerless. We need both. The story of Bertrand Russell is the story of the 20th century with its lights and shadows. It's proof that a single mind, armed with reason and words, can change the course of history and challenge the most powerful empires. His logic broke down the universe into atoms of meaning. His activism sought to unite humanity in lasting peace. He failed many times, changed his mind, erred and rectified, but he never ever stopped thinking. And that is the greatest gift he leaves us, the constant invitation to think, to not accept authority just because, to be skeptical but constructive, to be citizens of the universe, free from the chains of dogma. Now think about your own life. How many of your beliefs would withstand Russell's analysis? How many are based on evidence and how many on desire or fear? Asking yourself that question is the first step to awakening. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of one of thought's giants. It's been an honor to unravel these ideas with you. If this analysis has sparked a thought in your mind, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Comment below which of Russell's ideas impacted you most. His relentless logic or his passionate humanism? I'll be reading your comments. Until next time, let's keep questioning. Let's keep learning. And as Russell would say, let love be our guide and reason our light. Goodbye. One last detail before we go. Russell's philosophy teaches us that intellectual work never ends. Every answer opens new questions. Keep that curiosity alive. It's the engine that drives the world. And remember, even when logic seems cold, its ultimate purpose is to serve warm, vibrant life. Don't study to be pedantic, study to live better. That's the real secret. The barber's paradox taught us limits. Activism taught us courage. Russell's life is a map for navigating complexity. Use it well. From the solitude of Pembroke Lodge to the world stage, Russell never stopped being that child who sought security in geometry. We all carry such a child within us. Nurture them. Clarity is a form of courtesy to the thoughts of others. Write clearly, speak clearly, think clearly. It's the best homage you can pay to this thinker. See you in the next video, where we'll continue exploring the ideas that shaped our reality. Knowledge is an infinite adventure. Be brave. Thank you for your time and attention, the two most valuable resources you have. Investing them in learning is the best decision. Warm regards to all. Until next time, truth seekers. Keep reading, keep doubting, and above all, keep being human. End of broadcast.